Hey everyone, welcome. This is Donna, and I'm here with the grads of Team Tiny for our very first hashtag grads of Team Tiny fall video hop. Now, this is a hashtag driven hop, and you would find the next video to watch by entering the hashtag in the search bar or just clicking the hashtag in my title. So for my fall inspired card, I'll be using the Gerda Steiner Foxes stamp set, as well as a few other dies to create my little fall scene. I'll begin my card by ink blending the sky background. Here I have a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I am using the Heavy Doodle Cloudy Skies stencil to ink up my background. I have the stencil secured over the top of my cardstock using the Make Art Station, and I'm just ink blending Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink to create those fluffy clouds. Now, what I really love about this stencil is the fact that you can slide your cardstock in and hold it in place to ink up the next row of clouds. I was just kind of trying to decide which of those cloud shapes I wanted to add next. And then I'll just grab my blender brush again and start inking up the next row. And then I'll just continue shifting my cardstock and sliding it into one of the rows to ink up all the way until I get to the bottom. At the bottom, I do rotate my stencil to use one of the edges to finish off the background. So while I am ink blending, I'll create the bottom portion of my scene, and I'll just add some mustard seed Distress Oxide ink. And then I do bring in a little bit of fossilized amber to add some depth to those grassy hills. I'll finish off this panel by adding some splatters for interest using diluted acrylic black paint and a small paintbrush. And then I can set that aside to dry while I work on my images. Here I have a piece of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I'm using Memento Tuxedo black ink to ink up my stamps. I did choose 2 of the 3 foxes and the wreath, and then a couple of those toadstools. Now I think my magnet was just in the way and I couldn't get a clear impression of that one toadstool, but I'll go ahead and move my panel over and stamp another one out to use for my card. So I've sped this part of the video up quite a bit. I'll color up just one of the foxes on screen with you, and unfortunately I think I forgot to hit record when I started coloring his head, but basically the coloring is just the same as the rest of his body. I chose some orange-ish brownish markers to color the images up, and I will have all of the color combinations I used listed on my blog, which is linked down below in case you're interested in checking that out. But basically I start with a layer of my lightest color, which is my highlight, and I add that across the entire image just to wet my paper. And then I'll come in with my shadow markers at the very edges of my image. Now typically I color my images as if the light source is at the front, so the shadow areas would be on both sides of the body. And I am not an expert on light source and shading. I really am still learning, but at this point this is how I like to color and what's pleasing to my eye. Anyway, once I have my images colored, I do use my Scan and Cut to cut the images out. Then I'll set those aside to work on the rest of the elements for my card. For the sentiment, I'll be using the sentiment stamp by scrapbook.com. This one is called Wordfetti Best Day Ever, and it features a ton of small font sentiments. They're just little phrases with uplifting messages for encouragement, friendship, and kind of everything in between. I chose the one that reads, "Celebrate the everyday" for my card. So here I have a piece of chocolate fudge brown cardstock. I believe it's by MFT, and I've treated the panel with anti-static powder, and then I've inked it up with Versamark ink, and I'm adding some white embossing powder. Then I'll heat set that in place with my heat tool. I do use one of these simple sentiment dies by Avriel to die cut my sentiment, and then while I am die cutting the elements, I'll die cut the yellow ink blended panel using the Grassy Border die by Lawn Fawn. And I will also die cut more of that chocolate fudge brown cardstock. This time I'll use the Stitched Wood Grain backdrop by Lawn Fawn. Now this is a fun backdrop die that creates wood grain texture by embossing, and it also cuts the panel down to an A2 size card. And lastly, I use the second to largest stitched rectangle die by MFT to die cut the cloud stencil background and the Grassy Border hill background, just to have the stitching all the way around. So at this point I have all of my elements ready to go, and I can begin by adding my wood grain backdrop to a top folding A2 size card base. Then I'll have the ink blended panel. I do add some fun foam to that panel just to pop it up a little bit, and then I'll grab some liquid adhesive and adhere that down, and this just leaves about a 1/4 inch border of that brown cardstock peeking out. And then I'm going to add the Grassy Hill Border panel down, and I just use some liquid adhesive to add that directly to the stencil background. And then I'll just kind of start playing around with the images and the placement before I start adhering everything down. I do have all of the images popped up on Fun Foam, and I use just a little bit of adhesive to add to my panel. Now my wreath, my Scan and cut the one image out. I guess there was a section of the image where it wasn't completely connected to the next leaf. So we're just going to do a little bit of piecing here, a little bit of surgery, and then creatively cover that up with the sentiment strip. So I'm just going to kind of take my little leaf image and turn it the way it normally would be, and then just kind of tuck it into that open space. And again, I take that sentiment strip and just kind of lay it over that section of the wreath, and that will kind of cover up the cut where you can slightly see it. I did add a little bit of Fun Foam to the center of that sentiment strip just to keep it even with the rest of the image. And then once I do adhere my two little foxes and the toadstool, I will use some Spectrum Noir clear glitter overlay pen to add a little bit of sparkle to my foxes to finish off this card. So that will do it for my card. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you have enjoyed my stop on this hop. Don't forget to click the hashtag in my title. That will pull up the rest of my crafty friends that are participating in this hop. As always, I will have a link to my blog where you can see some close-up images, the color combinations that I've used, and all of the supplies that I have used in creating this card if you're interested in that. If you have enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a comment and hitting the like button on this video. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified the next time I upload a video. That will do it for me today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you another time.